African Zionist Federation strongly condemn the ANC's resolution to downgrade the South African embassy in Israel. The organization has questioned the motives behind this discriminatory decision that would effectively prevent South Africa from playing any mediatory role in bringing about peace or dialogue between Israel and Palestine. But to discuss this further, we're joined by Zev Krengal, who is from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. Zev, good morning. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you for coming through.
Let's just get your reaction to the resolution by the ANC.
Yeah, so look, we're very disappointed. I was at the conference, and you know that they claimed it's in response to President Trump's declaration on Jerusalem being Israel's capital. But exactly what they were claiming, what Trump was doing, they've now done the exact same thing by making a unilateral declaration that just makes the two conflicting parties literally further away from the from the negotiation table. So from our point of view as the South African Jewish community, we committed to a two-state solution. We committed to see a Palestinian state, and the only way you're going to get that is if you're going to get the two sides working together. But actually, the ANC did exactly what they accused Trump of doing.
But the ANC, of course, saying that they're trying to send a clearer, stronger message to Israel that there's a price to pay for human rights violation.
So the problem there is, first of all, South Africa doesn't mean anything in Israel's life. We're an absolutely tiny economy. We've got 28% unemployment. We're battling economically. Israel's a powerhouse. Israel's a economic powerhouse. It's got a 7% unemployment. The Russians, the Indians, the Chinese, the Americans, everyone wants Israeli technology. So this hasn't even got to the Israeli media. They really don't even know about it. So that we have no standing in the world when it comes to putting that type of pressure on another country. The only thing South Africa can offer is our way of making peace. And our way of making peace and the ANC's way of making peace is no matter how vicious the situation is, you continuously engage in and you don't make unilateral decisions that is going to push one side further away from the negotiation table. So we have lost our only positive that we could have played a role by giving our way of making peace. And now, unfortunately, we have no role to play whatsoever. Exactly what President Mahmoud Abbas is saying about Trump, we have done the exact same thing now, where we do not have any role to play in that conflict.
Yeah, and we know that the resolutions by the NEC is the biggest decision-making body here. It means that this will, of course, be implemented. But you're saying that the ANC has a role to sort of bring about peace. What do you think their role should be, and how they should go about doing that?
So before this happened, we really felt that the South African government, and the interesting thing is President Zuma tried very hard. He got his envoys going. President Mbeki really made a huge impact on that, on the conflict, when then Prime Minister Olmert was the Deputy Prime Minister, came to South Africa, went to Robben Island, and saw how such a viciousness and such a horrific conflict we were having, how you can move on, how you can start trusting your enemy in that. And it actually moved Olmert's view from being right to centre, and Olmert nearly gets a deal with the Palestinians. So that's the role we can play. We need to be a safe space for Israel and for the Palestinians to come and talk. But this type of thing is this type of thing goes exactly against what the ANC and what the South African government has always done in every other conflict situation in the world, whether it was Sri Lanka, whether it was Ireland, whether it's been in Africa, Zimbabwe. We're always the ones that want to talk to all sides. And even if the one we think is totally incorrect, we never make these condemnations unilaterally. It's not how South Africa works.
So obviously you're not happy. What do you think the next step will be for the South African Jewish Board of Deputies?
So look, we're very unhappy, and the Jewish community of South Africa is very unhappy, and a lot of the Christian community of South Africa is very unhappy because the South African embassy in Tel Aviv is a piece of South Africa in the Holy Land. So now it's been downgraded. So on a religious level for Jews and Christians, it's a very sad day as being a South African. What's going to happen? The ANC now, is government going to make it policy or whatever? We're just very disappointed. But the real loser here is the ANC and the South African government's ability to try and bring these two conflicting parties together where they can possibly have played a role, which now we don't. We have no more role to play. Yep. And now we just hope now for a Palestinian state to be created, if you listen to what President Mahmoud Abbas, now we hope the Russians and the Chinese are going to fill the gap and are actually going to play a role in bringing these two sides to the negotiation.
Let's just get your quick reaction on the latest news that more than 120 countries defied President Donald Trump's. They defied him on Thursday, and they voted in favor of a United Nations General Assembly resolution calling for the United States to drop its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. What's your take on that?
So look, it's the UN body. It's not that surprising. I mean, generally when it comes to these type of things, the General Assembly always votes against Israel. It's got a history of always doing that for many, many years, because the Arab Muslim blocs are very big. And they've also done it against America. So, it's fairly surprising. As I said, once again, all the noise is just making it more difficult to get the parties to come and talk. We know what happens if the one lashes out at the other, and then we know what was happening in South Africa in the 80s and in the early 90s, and as we got closer to 94, when the Chris Hani gets murdered, when you have Boy Patong, it was as it's getting closer, there's more violence. But the brilliance of President Mandela, and for that matter, then President de Klerk, was whatever's happening about the noise, you keep talking to each other. You don't stop talking, because no conflict will ever be ended by conflict. It will only be ended by some resolution. And that's what is so sad for me as a South African. We have given up the golden jewel of how we make peace to try and export that to probably one of the most difficult conflicts to be resolved, which will be resolved. And we won't be there when it's resolved.
All right, Zev, we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Zev Krengal from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies for joining us here on Morning Live. It's just a little after 7:30. Time now for your headlines.